Hey you, so on this video, gold and silver stacking for beginners, high premium versus generic, I'm going to be covering that today. So I've gone over the first three, what I would consider the most important, or even in terms of the most questions I've had, and got over those. So from here on, I'm going to be covering more subcategories, categories or subjects individuals have requested or not so high in terms of what you may need to pay attention to. So on this one, high premium versus generic, and I will be covering a few more, I'm going to be going over options an individual just getting into stacking may come across. Now when I say high premium versus generic silver, I'll break it down. Whereas generic silver or gold would be the absolute cheapest you can find, regardless of whether it's from a government or any kind of fancy pattern. As individuals have commented in the past of my videos, they just want the raw material either AU or AG. They couldn't care about less. The only thing they care about is getting it for as close to spot or below spot. That's what I'm going to personally categorize as generic. Once again, it'd be fantastic to hear other people's opinions on what they class as generic and their views on it, and whether you're into one or other and your reasons why. Now on generic, that's going to be that there. Then you've got what I would class as your, I'd say, number two in terms of price rise, and that's going to be your government minted stuff. The government minted stuff, when we're talking, that is going to be from any recognizable government across the planet, not one of these, we have these ones where some mints get, like the Rwandan mint, get the, wink wink, give the impression that they're minted in Rwanda, but they're not. A lot of the private mints do stuff like this. I'm talking about something like the Royal Mint, the American Mint, the Royal Canadian Mint, and the likes of, where you'll find that mint doing their own government issued or minted coin, like this one I'm holding here, the Britannia, for instance. And I would class that in between. So, between high premium and low premium, these I would definitely class in between. And then we're going to get to something more high premium. Now, when we're talking high premium, it's anything from what I would consider a collector coin. When we're talking high premium, I would even put poured silver under the high premium banner. Once again, high premium is going to be anything where you're paying a large percentage over the current spot price. On a lot of these other coins, when we're talking gold and silver, even with gold, you can either get generic just below, or you're talking the government minted, it can be anywhere from 3% above. When you're looking at more of the collector coin pieces or even the poured silver, you could be paying anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20%, a lot higher above spot price. So this is what I'm going to be classing as high premium. Of course, once again, when we're talking bars, it's not something that I've got a lot of knowledge with, but I do own a few like these ones I'm showing here, but nothing in terms of generic, medium premium or high premium. It's not something I personally get into, but if somebody does handle those, it'd be great to hear in the comments. But I would put them under the same category as coins. You can have your generic bars, not so much governmented, even though they are, and then your high premium bars. So same rules could technically apply. But when I'm going to categorize those, an individual may be looking at these and thinking which one would he want to get into and which one's best. So I'm going to give just a few pointers on some of the pluses and the negatives of each, and let's maybe take it from there. So the first thing I would say, in terms of price wise, touching upon the cheapest, which is going to be generic, for an individual who's in a situation that just wants the absolute cheapest form of either metal, whether it's gold or silver, generic is most definitely going to be your first pick, as I've got a lot more background noise still going on now. As I mentioned, individuals in the past have mentioned they couldn't care less about the fancy patterns and designs. For in Europe, this would be one of the only options that I would technically class as generic, as we'll get into why I feel it's a fantastic coin. But individuals have mentioned in the past that they couldn't care less about what's on the design, the pattern. They want to get the most, the most bang for their buck. So that's going to be getting the most amount of gold or the most amount of silver content, actual physical metal, for however much you're putting in. You're putting in $100, £100. You want to get as close to as much as £100 worth or $100 worth of metal. That's going to be the generic option. These are for individuals. It can appeal to you if you're an individual that just basically is maybe on a budget or is going for a very, very, very long term, and I'll break into that in a moment. But that's going to be generic. That can appeal to a lot more people because it's the more sane, a smarter option. Now, I'll say one thing on generic. With generic, you have definitely, I would say, a whole lot more options in America than you do in Europe. In Europe, generic is damn near non-existent. You will get a lot of the closest thing we would get to generic in Europe is going to be the junk, and that's going to be the fractional silver and the likes of. These are the kind of things that could technically be classed as generic now. You're not getting 100% silver or gold content. You'll be getting a fraction of that, but that's the closest we're getting to generic. Whereas in Americas and maybe other places on the planet, you're getting a lot more options where coins have a full ounce but will be made by a private mint, or definitely a whole load more options. And it's one of the main reasons why I never did personally get into generic. But I'm not saying if it was available to me now, I would be jumping on board with that. So that could be appealing to an individual if they want to get generic silver. If you want to get the absolute most bang for your buck, it's going to be a lot more appealing and a lot more options for individuals that are out in America from what I've seen. Now, when we're talking a government minted coin, jumping onto that, so they would say this is medium premium. What that's going to appeal to an individual, I've clearly stated in many videos that this is my most favorite option here, is you're going to be finding a coin that's going to be highly recognizable if you was to go down that path. Highly recognizable, it's minted by the government of that company, of that country, so it will have many pluses that I'll be also getting into in a moment, and not so many negatives. So an individual may just want to take the safest option, and I would say the most recognizable option, and that's going to be a government minted coin from whichever country you're in. Of course, each and every individual's situation is going to be different when we're talking government minted, but I would say for me, in terms of pick, they would be the top of the pick for me. It's a government minted coin, you can't go wrong. It's the most recognizable. In terms of price, you're not going to find them cheaper than generic because it has that recognizability. So that's the price you're paying for those, but it's not too much of a high premium over spot. I would say it's the baseline, the most acceptable and reasonable when we're talking high premiums. We're talking high premiums, we're talking a medium premium coin. Now, getting into why an individual may want to pick up high premium next is going to be because the other two don't appeal to them, and I'll be breaking in once again some of the reasons why that may be. But a high premium coin is going to be anything from a highly desirable coin. You could be looking at a very old vintage coin that's now coming to today, and a lot of demands come for it, so you're going to be paying a higher premium, the highest premium over spot. Why? Because it's going to be appealing more to collectors, and once you enter that realm, you're playing by that realm's rules. And straight off the bat, when we're talking premiums, I've seen premiums be insane. You could be talking 50%, 150% over spot price. So when it comes to high premium, you can throw the human calculator out the window. You're paying whatever demand is calling for you to pay. So that could be a plus for anybody and everybody, but it's going to be a small few. But one of the main things with this that doesn't apply to generic, even though there are many forms, is you'll get many different variations, and a lot more with a lot more interest in. So you can get many forms of generic, but it doesn't cover as much interest. No one's running after that new generic rooster, whereas when you're talking one of these collector coins, you'll find more demand for it. It just is what it is. That's where we live today. So that's going to be the high premium. Now, getting into why an individual may want to stack one of these, and I will touch upon the pluses and the minuses of them. Now, when you're looking at something like generic silver, I would say the plus side to generic silver, or gold, should I mention as well, has always been that an individual can pick this up for the absolute cheapest. So if you're an individual on a budget, then by all means, it's a fantastic option. Getting into the negatives of generic silver that I've basically seen and gold would be it's not going to be as highly liquid as something like the government minted coin. And when you come in to sell something like the generic silver or gold, I would say the issue you may have is, and it's going to be a common issue, a dealer may not be interested in the piece because they may have their books full, or the turnover time will take way too long. So you can have the generic piece, whether it be gold or silver, and you can be able to stock more, and be buying it at the cheapest premium. But come time to sell, nobody wants it because it's technically the bottom of the pile. Then you'll be in a situation where you're forced to either sell it for a loss. Now, remembering the dealer's going to know you bought this at rock bottom, and you know you bought this at rock bottom. So I would say when purchasing generic silver, the best form of advice that I personally would give is go ultra long. If you're going to be going ultra long and you couldn't care less about the swings and spot price, then by all means lock in on that, because you will win at the end of the day. A lot of the times when an individual will mention weight, i.e. generic, they want the cheapest for their money, it'll be because they can get more silver for their money. But I was the first to mention there is a danger to that, because you have the situation where individuals that with that same mindset purchased in the highs, I believe in 2011, and they're still in the red. So always purchasing, that game plan does work for the majority of the time, but at one time where you jump in, and you may jump in at a peak, well, you know, you'll be in a situation where you're still in the red and you've technically got a whole load of generic silver. And this is why I'm mentioning it's only going to really make a difference if you have to draw upon that silver at any time, or gold. You know, if you don't need to trouble it and don't need to touch it, it's not going to make a difference what happens. This is your pension, your savings, and you're going for the ultra long term. Regardless of what happens, you're going long. You won't need to tuck into it. If you've got silver at the time, I mean, silver's been high. You know, those individuals that are still in the red that purchased then are still in the red. You know, it's been a long time, 5 or 6 years now, and they're holding on to a whole load of silver that's still negative. You know, they have a very long time to go. I mean, we're all still waiting on that peak, and they'll just be breaking even. So if you're going long and you have no intention of ever troubling or touching it, it's a fantastic option for those that can get in there, and I would definitely make it a portion of my stack. But if for some unforeseeable reason you may need to tuck in, it may be a risky bet picking up the generic silver, but it's always going to be your cheapest, best option. You know, there are some generic is better than others, as with everything, so you may want to pick your generic wisely. Now, the pluses, I would say, of the government minted, I would also give it a risk factor. So I would say, 10, whilst I'm still on the generics, 10 being worst, high risk, and 1 being no risk whatsoever. I would give generic from a scale of 1 to 10 a 6. You know, anything above 5 is a 50-50, pay attention. And I would say that because, once again, you could present this to many dealers and they know they're just getting the raw metal, so they can easily turn back and tell you, look, our books are full, we have no need of it, we'll give you damn near maybe half the price. They know you paid little for it, and if you're in a pinch, that's the last thing you want to hear. And you know, that can happen with any I'm about to present, but it's more likely to happen with something like this. But you know, if you got in low, it shouldn't make a difference if you're selling high, but if you're selling in a low or around the same price you picked up for, it could be very risky. So I'd give that a 6 out of 10. Once again, my own personal ratings and opinions. It'll be fantastic to hear everybody else's in the comments. Now, getting on to government minted, as I've done many videos on, the plus side to this would definitely be it's the most liquid. You know, it's going to be the most recognizable, and I personally feel it's the sweet spot. You're not paying as low as generic, but you're paying a little bit above, but it definitely has its pluses for that. Now, I would say the negatives, and I've ran into this myself with something like this, once again, is going to be along the lines of a dealer telling you they have too many of these in, whether it's an American Eagle or Maple. You know, they can tell you, well, we have so many Britannias at the moment, so I'll give you this. But 9 times out of 10, you're only going to be getting a couple of points below spot. So you could be looking anywhere from the usual 2%, maybe 3%, or maybe lower. Now, a dealer's only going to tell you that if business is crawling along. If things ain't moving over fast, then hey ho, you may be in a bit of spot of bother, but not as bad as generic. Whereas with the government minted, it's a lot more liquid even for dealers. This is going to be a majority of LCS's bread and butter. It may not be, you know, but you know, the majority of them don't have no problem moving your Eagle, gold or silver, your Britannia, gold or silver, your Maple, and the likes of. So you have that plus side, and the negative would be, you know, they may take you down a couple of percent because, you know, their excuse if things ain't moving as fast is just not doing too well. But in a very plus where spots should shoot up in price, you're going to have a fantastic coin to easily liquidate, because 9 out of 10 dealers will take this straight away. It's going to be the gold or silver coin that they're definitely going to draw to. And for me, I like this position in life, so it's the perfect position. You know, you're covering all bases, not too hot and not too cold. So that's going to be the pluses of generic. Now, in terms of risk, when I would rate generic, I would say, you know, 10 once again being high risk and 1 being no risk. I would say the risk on government minted would easily be a 3 to 4 for me, because the negative is going to be a dealer telling you they have too many of them. And in that scenario, all you want to do is shop around. They're gonna give you a price, but they won't go too low. So, and that's just from personal experience and from what I've seen. So that would be the risk on the government minted bullion. It's definitely my most favorite of them all. Now, getting into the high premium stuff, when we're talking about this, the pluses with the high premium would be, it's the most rewarding. If done right, it's going to reward you the most in the shortest period of time or the longest period of time. Whether we're talking a poured silver, which definitely falls under the category, vintage bar, or anything of the likes. It's one of the reasons why I got into high premium, because it spiced things up. The government mint was boring, generic wasn't an option, and I definitely saw the opportunities with the high premium stuff. It's going to reward you the most if done well. Now the negative, it's going to hit you the hardest if done wrong. You will get wrecked. That's happening quite a lot now, because every coin that technically comes at a higher premium and is labeled high premium gets everybody involved, but it doesn't mean it's going to reap the same benefits as that other coin did or this other one done. So you could end up losing more, because one, you paid a lot more to get in, and two, you're going to be hit with a lower price when it comes time to sell, or you're just cutting your losses and breaking even. Now that is most definitely something to pay a lot of attention to, because I'm coming across a lot of individuals that are falling under that category and getting hit with that, because they may have picked something up at the time they thought was great. Now, even with a spot increase, remembering that you paid quite a larger premium over spot price for this high premium piece to begin with, if you're not an individual that's collecting it because you love it, i.e. a collector, or you couldn't care less, you just want one, if you're looking to sell, it's something you should definitely pay attention to. It's become a lot harder when you're picking up these pieces, but you are going to get a lot of the more desirable variety when you're talking high premium. So you're gonna, but from what I've seen, a lot more flavor, a lot more nicer pieces, and then you may mentally think you're paying that higher premium, so you're getting that higher product, well, that superior product, but it's not always the case. Not to forget, 1 ounce of silver is 1 ounce of silver, but we could say that about many other things. But that's most definitely something you need to pay attention when it comes to the high premium. It can be the most rewarding, but it could also be the most punishing. So picking up this, if I was going to give it a risk factor, with high premium, 10 being extremely risky, 1 being not so risky, I would give high premium, currently in the current climate of recording this video, easily a 8 out of 10. So that's a very high risk when you're talking any high premium price piece. Remember, if you're not a collector that purely loves it and you do intend to sell it at a later date, then it's not a problem. But if for any reason you may need to sell this, or you think, hey, I'll pick this up and sell it in a couple of years when it increases in price, you could be taking a very high risk. Very, very, very risky stuff when we're talking the high premium, but also extremely rewarding. I've shown videos in the past where I've been able to pick up a lot more government minted just off the power of one collector coin. So each individual needs to take all of that into account when they're picking up high premium or generic, and really pick what's best for you. At the end of the day, if you're just getting into stacking gold or silver and you want to be able to pick the best coin for you and maybe get some options, that was going to be the usual, what you'll hear from an individual that only picks up weight, i.e. generic. They want the most metal for their money, but there's pluses and negatives to that. When you're talking a medium premium government minted coin, you're getting the most liquid, and I would say out of risk and everything, it's the best all-rounder. Then with the high premium, if you're not collecting just for the sake of having a few in your arsenal, then you have to take the risks aboard, but then you can also look at the rewards, which are becoming slim pickings as the days move on. So that is what I'm going to wrap this one up with, the the high premium versus generic, the high premium versus weight. It'd be fantastic to hear what anybody else would want to leave in the comments, for anybody that's getting into stacking, some advice that anybody can gain from. So hate or love it, guys. It'd be fantastic to know what you think of this video. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll catch you guys in the rebound.